So today, this is a new era of cooperation. Our strategic Canada-EU or EU-Canada strategic partnership for the future will build a new and deeper relationship that brings us closer together, from defense to digital, from supply chains to security. We're launching comprehensive negotiations across multiple areas of cooperation, connection, trade, security, digital, climate. And this will make us both more resilient and more prosperous.
So there you have it, guys. That is the EU-Canada Summit back in June. And there's Mark Carney talking about the trade talks that they were having back then. Welcome to Unpontificated. My name is Vuyo. And today I want to talk about Mark Carney's talk about trade. Whenever he talks about trade, you hear him talking about trade, improving trade between Canada and the EU, and then him talking obviously with Canada and Asia trade as well. Obviously, this is about Canada being less reliant on the US and more resilient between trade between provinces and themselves, and then diversifying the trade with other countries so that we can reduce the reliance on the US because of Trump and his tariff talks. So one thing I want to talk about on this video is, what about Africa? You don't hear Canada or Carney talk about boosting trade between Canada and Africa. And now I get it. I mean, European countries are allies, you know, England, France, especially since that's where the settlers, or what some people would like to call them, colonizers, came to Canada. And so those are our main allies, as well as other countries. Asia, population, I mean, the economic impact of trade in Asia. I mean, the population of Asia is humongous. So obviously, you want to boost your trade with Asian countries. But the potential for trade in Africa is also immense. It is an untapped market, especially since Africa has a lot of the minerals, the special minerals that are needed for cell phones, EVs, and things like that. So what I think is missing from Carney's talk on trade is the inclusion of boosting trade in Africa. Now, even Trump is noticing this.
It seems like it was a quite positive meeting between the African nations and the president. What are some of the key highlights?
Well, I don't know if it was positive or it was just a neutral meeting, but just listening to the African leaders speak, it felt like they had all been well briefed and well prepped by the team, leader after leader. You could get a sense that they were kind of reading from the same script. First, it was President Donald Trump, then second, pitch challenges as an investment opportunity to the U.S., and then finish by praising Trump again and reinforcing the fact that America is a very important ally to the region and the African continent. And with the big boys missing on the table, Nigeria and South Africa, one couldn't help but wonder why these five countries, they have a combined GDP of only $75 billion. But when you look keenly, you realize that these are coastal countries that sit on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, and they also have access to critical and rare earth minerals that are very necessary for technological advancements. They go into chips and semiconductors, and they were pitching this to the U.S. and say, you need access and we need investment in exchange. President Donald Trump kept his speech very, very brief, saying that Africa has massive potential and saying he wants to build a new friendship with Africa. But this is deeply rooted in need. They want to reduce their reliance on China, who have access and they are producers of these rare earth minerals, but then they use it for geopolitical leverage. Outside of that, very little promises made, just a slight hint that these African countries could be exempted from tariffs.
Exactly. So Trump is seeing the potential there for rare earth minerals. I certainly hope that those leaders do not get duped by anything and don't make bad deals for the countries, because that's one of the history, I guess, sometimes of African countries. The leaders enrich themselves and make bad deals for the country and for the rest of its people. And that's just not on. So Canada, I think, is potentially missing out. Now, I did a bit of a research, and I do see that there are Canadian companies in Africa doing certain things. And Canada has, well, here, let me just bring this up. By the way, to that reporter's point, here are the countries that were meeting with Donald Trump: Senegal, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Gabon. So you can see they're all, and Mauritania, they're all here on the Atlantic coast, right? And here's Halifax. Halifax is right here. So, you know, you can just go boom, trade right now with African countries, at least with these African countries. But all the way down here have rare earth minerals. Here's Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Remember when Trump met with these leaders to have a ceasefire between the fighting there? And he also talked about rare minerals that they have, critical minerals that they have. So Trump is making a play. The US is making a play for Africa because China has been making this play. Where's China? There you go. China has been making this play for years now, trying to get in there. And so I think this is to the advantage of African countries. If they have people from this side trying to get in, from this side trying to get in, then make good deals for your countries. Make good deals for your people. The time is now, Africa. The time is now. All right, so here, Canada does have a Africa strategy. It's called a Partnership for Shared Prosperity and Security.
One part of the throne speech, though, I want to draw attention to today in the House is on the 8th page of the throne speech, where it says, the government is working to strengthen its relationships with reliable trading partners, allies around the world, recognizing that Canada has what the world needs and the world respects. Canada is ready to build a coalition of like-minded countries that share its values, that believe in international cooperation and the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. In this fast evolving world, Canada is ready to lead. The reason I want to focus on that part of the speech from the throne that the King so eloquently delivered in the Senate earlier this week is because just before the election, just in early part of March, I was able to, on behalf of the government, launch Canada's new strategy related to Africa. It's called a partnership, Canada's Africa Strategy, a partnership for shared prosperity and security. It took 2 years in the making of over 160 consultations with groups, with individuals, with academics, with business groups, with Africans in their own continent and African Canadians here. Extensive conversation, extensive consultation have led to what I believe is a new approach to Canada's working with, working for, working together with Africans. The whole continent, regional economic communities, and individual governments. The strategy itself is based in the Africa we want, which is the Africa 2063, the strategy of the African Union. They took years to develop Africa's strategy. They took years to develop, and Canada has listened to it and taken it to heart to say that the primary concern that we need to have in our relationship with Africa is a mutually beneficial partnership. We need to absolutely have a way to look eye to eye with African partners to recognize that the future of Canada rests in a strong social, economic, cultural, trade relationship with the African continent.
Okay, that's great. And if we're to look at some of the contents of this Canada-African strategy, you see Canada will work with African partners across 5 strategic areas that are aligned with the African Union's Agenda 2063 and informed by numerous consultations with African, Canadian, and international stakeholders. Strengthening our diplomatic engagement and people-to-people ties, including through special envoys and embassies, expanded collaboration with the regional economic communities and parliaments, and a new diaspora engagement mechanism. enhancing economic cooperation, including through a high-level trade mission to Africa, the creation of an Africa trade hub, additional support for the implementation of African Continental Free Trade Area, negotiation of foreign investment promotion and protection agreements, and research partnerships, reducing poverty, supporting economic development, empowering youth, assisting in humanitarian crises, and climate adaptation. I won't read the whole thing. Bolstering partnerships for peace, security, and human rights, and advancing shared priorities through increased engagement on the global stage, including by continuing to support and increased participation and influence in multilateral spaces and working closely with African partners to address global challenges and opportunities. Over the past 5 years, Canada has significantly stepped up its political engagement with Africa. So there is a Canada-Africa strategy, as was accounted by that member of parliament in March. It was 2 years in the making, and it was put in place in March. So why isn't this being mentioned by Carney overall? I mean, if you're increasing your engagement in Africa, tell the people. Like, if people aren't looking into these things, most people aren't political. They'll get their news from CBC, they'll get their news from CTV, and these news outlets, these media outlets are just reporting. You know, they've got their own agenda, and they're just reporting what Carney's saying. And if Carney's not mentioning Africa at all, then the Canadian people are going to think that Canada is not doing much in Africa at all. And all you see on TV, on media about Africa is corrupt leaders. You see, tourism. You'll see a leopard, a cheetah chasing a gazelle. You'll see all these stereotypical negative things about Africa. And our political leaders are not mentioning that they're engaging in Africa. Only time you're mentioning engaging in Africa is helping Africa out of poverty, helping Africa, improve its health outcomes for women giving birth. All these negative things about Africa. But in the meantime, Africa has got major earth minerals, major critical minerals. And yes, Africa does need help. Yes, Africa does have leaders who are enriching themselves and forgetting about the poor. Yes, there's problems. But Africa needs to be mentioned. And when I'm talking now broadly as Africa, because Mark Carney does say, he says Europe, he says Asia, so say Africa. But there are 54 countries in Africa. So if you want to talk about England, France, China, Malaysia, well, say Gabon, Senegal, Liberia, South Africa, Botswana, Kenya. These are all individual countries. Rwanda is a great country to go and invest in. In fact, if you look at, when I look at what Google, this is Google AI, best countries to invest in. Those there's factors you have to look at. AI overview. Several African countries show strong potential for investment in 2025, with Egypt, Mauritius, and Rwanda often cited as top contenders. These nations offer diverse opportunities across sectors like real estate, technology, and infrastructure development. However, the best country for investment depends on individual investor goals, risk tolerance, and specific sector investments. And you've got Google AI. We'll cite some countries here: Egypt, Mauritius, Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa. Don't know where the South African flag is. What's going on? Botswana, known for stable currency, controlled inflation, strong credit rating, making it a low-risk entry point for investors. Ghana, Nigeria, huge economy. Tanzania, Ethiopia. So there are countries in Africa where you can invest. You have to invest wisely. You have to invest wisely everywhere, and do well. Some people are doing just that. So all I want from Mark Carney, okay, is a mention of countries in Africa, what Canada is doing in Africa, because Canada does have an Africa investment strategy. It has one. So can you tell us? Tell everybody. that you do. Don't just mention Europe and Asia, because everybody knows that Europe and Asia are going to be your main investment vehicles for Canada, and rightfully so. But mention Africa as well, and African Canadians, will feel included, and know that Canada, the country that they're now calling home. I've been in Canada for over 40 years. Canada is not my home, so I think the rhetoric needs to improve a little bit, and show that you're diversifying, because that will also show a diversification of Canada's economic direction, so to speak. And so, what do you guys think? That's my talk. Let's include Africa. Canada does have an Africa development strategy, Africa investment strategy. So mention it. Tell us. Let me know what you guys think. Any of you guys have investments in Africa? I will see you guys next time. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.